Joining me live now from his office in Parliament House is the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Prime Minister, thanks so much for your time. So we heard today from Bill Shorten he's going to reform the NDIS. When we see the budget in 3 weeks from today, will the estimated cost of that scheme have reduced or increased?
What you'll see from Labor when it comes to the NDIS is that we want to make sure that participants are looked after. And that's what Bill's speech at the National Press Club was about today, making sure that if there is any unscrupulous providers seeing this, as he just declared there, as a cash cow, rather than a scheme which is about helping vulnerable people to fully participate in our society, then the government's prepared to take measures to ensure that every dollar is spent in the right way and that it's spent in order to improve people's lives. That's what the National Disability Insurance Scheme was about, and that's what Bill Shorten, through reforms, will be making sure it continues to be.
I mean, we've had projections that will get out to $50 billion in 2026 and end up costing more than Medicare and aged care put together. Is that sustainable? Is there more you can do to bring that in than just targeting fraud? And will we see that in the budget or not yet?
Well, our focus is on the delivery of appropriate services, and that is our entire focus. Now, clearly, part of that has to be making sure that every taxpayer dollar goes to making a positive difference in people's lives. That's what we'll be doing. We know that the NDIS is incredibly important for the individual, but it's also important for our society. And the NDIS shouldn't be seen as just a cost. What the NDIS does is enable people to fully participate in society, to make a contribution to the economy, to make a contribution to their family and their communities. So it's a very positive scheme. That is what it was designed to assist with. And that's what my government's very focused on. And I can't think of anyone better than Bill Shorten to deliver reforms to make sure that it achieves its objective on an ongoing basis.
Now, Jim Chalmers flagged yesterday there would be a change to the commodity price assumptions in the budget. I assume they'll be going up. Will they be going up by much?
Well, you'll have to wait, of course. Not too long now, Andrew. It's only, I think, 2 weeks away. So you'll have to be patient. You've asked me 3 questions and 2 of them have asked me for budget figures. So the budget is on May the 9th. It will be handed down. It will be a budget that's focused on repair, firstly, repairing a lot of the damage that was done over 9 years of neglect of the former government. We have to as well stop funding for so many programs just going off a cliff. And so that has required some considerable investment, because the idea that we just stop important programs in community services delivery, for example, on June 30 is simply untenable. So that'll be part of the job, but also providing assistance for people. You've already seen our energy price relief plan. You've seen cheaper medicines. You've seen cheaper childcare comes in on July 1. But it also will be a budget of restraint as well. We recognise the inflationary pressures that are there globally, and we want to make sure that we put that downward pressure on inflation.
Yeah, on spending restraint, I think the Treasurer was quoted in New York as saying it's more about that than any new taxes or increased taxes. Is that fair?
Well, we're having the expenditure review committees continuing to meet today, in fact, yesterday, tomorrow. We're continuing to have these deliberations, as you'd expect in the lead up to the budget, putting the final touches on. But we are looking for areas in which we can show that restraint. We want to make sure that we as well build for the future. So when we're focused on investment, it is in part looking at, okay, how do you deal with immediate challenges but also build a stronger, more resilient economy in the future? So areas such as our investment in skills, our fee-free TAFE provides an immediate benefit in taking pressure off people's cost of living, but at the same time is addressing those skills shortages. Our National Reconstruction Fund is about making sure that we're creating jobs, particularly in manufacturing, for the future. It's an investment in Australia's future economic growth. Our childcare policy is about taking that immediate pressure off families, but it's also about women's workforce participation. It's about boosting productivity as well, so good for business. So our frame is very much dealing with the immediate challenges, but making sure at the same time we build for the future.
You'd have to say that if the stage 3 tax cuts remain intact in this budget, you won't be fiddling with them in the next budget because it's pre-election. So are they pretty much baked in? Are we seeing them in their current form?
Well, I've said every time I've been asked about this for some period of time that there's been no change in the government's position.
Okay. Now, you have electricity bill price relief going to pensioners and the unemployed and the like. The fact you've got that flowing, does that make you more reluctant to increase JobSeeker, or is JobSeeker and single parent payments, could we see possible increases there given the cost of living crisis?
Well, Andrew, of course, 2 weeks to go till budget. I know that you are anticipating greatly the Treasurer's speech during Tuesday night, May 9, 7:30. Stay tuned there. That's when we make budget announcements. But a Labor government will always look for ways in which we can provide assistance to those in need. We'll do so, of course, though, in a context. The context here is we don't want to add to any inflationary pressure, and we inherited $1 trillion of debt from the former government without any plan for future economic growth. And that's what investment in childcare and addressing skills shortages, addressing the new economy through our National Reconstruction Fund is about as well. So you'll see a comprehensive plan from the government consistent with the commitments that we took to the federal election in 2022. We fulfilled so many of our commitments in the budget that we handed down in October, but we'll be continuing to work there. And we'll also be considering the context of we're dealing with globally, those economic headwinds which are there, the pressure that's there through measures as well, like the Inflation Reduction Act, taking meaning that there's pressure on where capital's invested here in Australia compared with the United States. That is placing pressure on future economic activity as well. So we're dealing with all of these challenges. The issue of dealing with climate change presents an enormous opportunity. But I'm very optimistic about Australia's future. My government has plans for economic growth, job creation, new industries, making more things here in Australia. But we also have plans for social equity and for particularly dealing with gender equity as well. Sam Mostyn's done some great work on women's economic equality, and we'll be considering those issues as well. And of course, our environmental program is one that has put us, opened the door again to international engagement. So you'll see in the budget as well that context, our need to be more engaged in Asia and the Pacific as well. You had a number of measures put in place in the last budget, but you'll continue to see that reflected. And you've had in the last 2 days, you've had the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, give a substantial speech at the National Press Club, and today Bill Shorten give another substantial speech. So I'm very proud to lead a government that has ministers of substance who are out there setting a future positive agenda for Australia.